Today we will be looking at how to measure, especially what is inside of an inch. These little markings that you see in front of you become very important in the world of woodworking. Here we are with a blank piece of paper. I would like you to follow along with your own piece of paper at your desk. To begin, we will draw a straight line across the paper and two vertical lines up and down, designating a 0 and a 1 for 0 inches and 1 inches. We will now be filling in the space in between those two marks with what belongs there as part of a ruler. The first logical step would be to put a 1/2 inch mark, halfway between the 0 and the 1 mark. Next we will divide our inch into 4 quarters, meaning 1 quarter for the first mark, 2 quarters for the second mark, which is equal to 1/2, and 3 quarters for the third mark, and then 4 out of 4 would be equal to 1. You always want to simplify your fractions whenever possible. Our next step is to go in between each of the marks that we currently made, dividing those in half. We'll start out, we have now 8 marks, we'll start out with 1/8. The next mark would be 2/8, but that is already taken by 1/4. So then we go to 3/8, 4/8 is equal to 1/2, 5/8, 6/8 is equal to 3/4, and 7/8. Of course, 8/8 would be equal to 1. If you want to get even more accurate inside of your inch with smaller marks, you can go down to 1/16 of an inch, dividing each of the 1/8 marks in half. Our first mark would be, of course, 1/16. 2/16 can be simplified to 1/8, so we'll skip that one and move to 3/16 on the next one. The next one we mark would become 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, 15/16, and if we added one more, 16 on 16 is equal to 1. Now, if after 1, the pattern just repeats itself, starting with 1/16 of an inch, then 1/8 of an inch, then 3/16 of an inch, then 1/4 of an inch. Take this time to think of what properties might exist in each of the numerators and the denominators as far as what examples you may have. Have you figured it out yet? All numerators must be odd. If you noticed, any even numerator could always be simplified down into a simpler fraction, such as 4/8 should be simplified down to 1/2. All denominators must be a multiple of 2. Some examples of that, of course, would be the 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, and if we got any more accurate, we could go to 1/32 or 1/64 of an inch, and continue on. Most rulers you will not see anything beyond a 32nd of an inch. Here is a chance for you to check your own paper if you are following along. Now, if you struggled before understanding how to go through that with the paper and dividing up the line and all that information that we just went through in the last segment, here's another way to think about dividing up a ruler that may help. Say this piece of paper is 1 inch long, and we want to divide it up and to understand what parts of the fractions are going to be inside this inch that we have. Well, the first thing to understand is we're going to divide the inch in half. So what we're going to do here is fold the paper. And some people call this hamburger style or whatever else. But just fold it so it's essentially in half. And actually you can do it, fold it either way, but I'm going to fold it this way so I have a crease right down the middle. Now, this crease in the middle designates that that is halfway, and that is 1/2 of an inch. Now, I've got my 1/2 of an inch marked out. Now, what would happen if I were to measure a line and the mark that I measured landed halfway between those two marks? Well, we need to designate those two marks as well. So, in this situation, what we're going to do, again, is divide the paper in half be halfway to the halfway mark. That's kind of a funny thing to say, but halfway in between 0 and a half and 1 and a half. Okay? So you can do that also if you guys want to follow along with me. If you just want to watch, that's fine as well. But I'm going to divide into half again and divide the other side in half again. And so now I've got two new creases. Those two creases, if you look at, are halfway between the half and then halfway between a half and 1. And we're going to call those 1/4 and 3/4. One way to think about it is if we start at 0 and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, we can count 4 segments. Each one would be 1/4, 2/4, which is equal to 1/2 when you simplify the fraction, 3/4, and then 4/4. Again, I'm going to mark those with my pencil or pen to help me understand it. So 3/4, and I'm going to draw a line down, and I've got one at 1/4. Now, as I've got my paper here, I want to look at what would happen again if I measure a line and it lands halfway between the lines that I currently have on there. We wouldn't be able to be very accurate. So, once again, what we can do is we're going to mark down halfway between each of those marks. In order to do that, I'm going to fold halfway to each of the creases that I've currently created. Another way to do it is just to fold up the paper into 8 equal little segments. Should be pretty easy because you already have 4 of the segments already folded. And I unroll my paper. I can see a few of them got a little off from my folding, but I've got 0 starting right here, a 1/8, 2/8, which is equal to 1/4, 3/8, 4/8, which is equal to 1/2, 5/8, 6/8, which is equal to 3/4, 7/8, and then 8/8. Again, we can mark that if we wish with our paper, or with our pen, excuse me, and I can go to my 1/8 mark, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8 with my pen, 6/8, and then we got 7/8, and 8/8 equals 1. And I could continue doing that, dividing those fractions up along the way until I got as accurate as I possibly wanted. Now, normally with a standard ruler, you're going to go down to a 1/8 of an inch or the nearest 1/16 of an inch, which would just be one more fold. All right, and hopefully this helped you. Some of you guys maybe understand that just folding the paper really is the same idea as where we're getting some of those fractions from, and it will help you as you learn how to practice your measuring as we get a little more accurate. Our first tip is to make sure that the edge of the ruler matches up with the end of the board that you want to measure. This will allow you to make sure that you start at a 0 and you get an accurate measurement. Our second tip today is to discuss what happens when your ruler has a worn down edge or it just doesn't have a good 0 mark. In that case, you can actually slide the 0 up to the nearest inch that is accurate, oftentimes being a 1-inch mark. The key here is again to find the exact 1-inch placement and not just base it on the number. Once you have that, you can actually subtract 1 from your current measurement and you'll have an accurate measurement. Please try and measure the black line on the ruler above. If you say 5 inches, you are correct. Please measure the black line on the ruler above. If you say 3.5 inches, you are correct. Please measure the line below the ruler. If you say the ruler is not set up correctly, you are correct. Now please measure the line correctly. As you can see, the ruler is above, the mark is above a 1/2 inch and below 3 inches. The closest measurement would be 2 3/4 inches. Please measure the black line. If you said 1 5/8 inches, you are correct.